Hello, welcome. This is mental health, wellness 101. I like to talk about mental health and wellness, but I like to add a God perspective to it as well. This morning, I wanted to just touch on, dysfunctional families, common narcissistic patterns that you might notice. That I've noticed it in my own family. I too came from a dysfunctional family myself, so I know what that looks like, but I also know what it feels like as well. But common narcissistic patterns that that are noticeable in a dysfunctional family would be grandiosity and entitlement. This is someone having a sense that the parents it's just a sense that the parents need to be needs their needs and desires always come first with little regard for everybody else. Some children have parents like that. Some of us grew up with parents like that. It was all about them before their children. Then we have lack of empathy, difficulty understanding or validating others' feelings and responses, centered on how things affect, that narcissistic person. Need for admiration and control, constant seeking of praise or approval, or, to dictate how others should behave. And then, you have the manipulation and the gaslighting as well, making others doubt their own uh, perceptions or memories to maintain control over that person. Disparaging or demeaning behavior, insults, sarcasms, the putting people down comments aimed at others to maintain some sort of superiority. And I do have family members who do this. They often put down other people to make themselves feel good or look good. Boundary testing or violation, pushing limits, invading privacy, or demanding compliance with with their rules. It's all about their rules and how they think things should go. I want to talk about how this affects children or other family members. One of the things is emotional guardedness. Children learn how to hide, their true feelings to avoid conflict. You just bury it and you just kind of keep it to yourself. Because especially if you feel like you don't have anybody to truly open up to. Entitlement expectations. Kids, they may feel they must perform or earn approval, some sort of an approval to be valued, by their parents or by, certain family members. They have this feeling of not being good enough. And then we have intermittent reinforcement, inconsistent warmth followed by criticism, which can be confusing and, destabilizing. I believe that as children, we can be traumatized by these things and don't know it. When, we don't know because we don't know what trauma is. Sometimes we grow up in toxic situations where we think it's normal. I thought it was normal in my household to be toxic. You know, I thought that, hey, that's just the way it was. But not realizing that, it was wrong. It wasn't right. You know, fear of authority or conflict, uh, reluctance to speak up or set boundaries outside the family. Yeah, um, I have family members that uh, they don't speak up, especially to the narcissistic family member like they should. Stand your ground, put boundaries in place, and just let that person know how you feel. Whether they care or not, it doesn't matter. But the bottom line is that, you know, um, uh, they know where you are coming from. They need to understand how you feel, you know. Um, I do have some practical steps, that you can consider, as I just stated, set and reinforce, your boundaries. Decide what behavior is acceptable and communicate limits in a calm manner. Enforce consequences if boundaries are crossed. You must affirm support networks, build a circle of trusted adults, teachers, therapists, mentors who can provide validation and guidance, to you if this is something that you're facing. Document patterns. If you are observing specific incidents, noticing dates, what happened and how it affected you, can help when seeking support as well. Protect your emotional safety. For the children. Create predictable routines, open channels for kids to express feelings, and reassure them that their experiences are validated. Seek professional guidance. A family therapist can help, map out, these family dynamics, set healthier boundaries, and develop communication strategies as well. Limit reactivity and, in the moment. When narcissistic behavior flares, try to respond with calm, clear statements. Like for example, I feel this way when you act this way. I need, and then you just speak on that boundary that you need to speak with that person about. Self care for yourself. Coping with narcissistic patterns is stressful. Prioritize your sleep, your activities that you enjoy, and if possible, personal therapy or support groups. Uh, if you know, um, if you are worried about safety, if there is any kind of risk or physical or emotional harm, then of course you need to seek immediate help. From your local resources, authorities, or some a hotline that you can call if that might be an issue. Now, what about core biblical principles that we can use as a guided approach to handling this sort of situation? Well, love and truth together. Okay, that's in Ephesians chapter 4 verses 15. It encourages speaking the truth in love. Aim for honesty about patterns while maintaining compassion. Boundaries as stewardship, not meanness. You can use boundaries as stewardship, not in a form of being mean. And Proverbs 25:17 and other passages talk about reasonable limits, protect relationships. Boundaries can reflect wisdom and care, not punishment. Humility and self-examination. Matthew chapter 7, verse 3 through 5 invites us to examine our own hearts before judging others. Accountability with grace. Romans chapter 12, verse 17 through 21 promotes responding to wrongs with peace, fairness, and non retaliation while holding people accountable. peacemaking and reconciliation. Matthew chapter 5 verse 9 and Romans chapter 12 verse 18. Encouraging, pursuing peace where possible and reconciliation when safe and healthy. Protect or protection of the vulnerable. Psalms 82 verse 3 and 4 and Jeremiah 31 verse 9. Highlight caring for the weak. You know, it talks about caring for the weak. This supports safeguarding children and other vulnerable members in your family. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. This is Mark chapter 12, verse 31. Underscores balance, love, loving others while loving yourself. Enough to set healthy boundaries. Yeah. So with the dysfunctional coping and safety concerns, you have substance misuse or risky behavior. This can you will see a lot of this in a dysfunctional family. Alcohol, drug problems, which do affects the functioning of a family. Physical or violence, physical, verbal, emotional abuse is present or tolerated as well. Self-harm, harming others, visiting patterns of self-injury, threats, or harm toward others. Chronic illness or neglect, basic needs, food, shelter, medical care are not consistently met sometimes in these type of situations. When it comes to how to approach these concerns, you have to observe the patterns, not just a single incident. You look for things that patterns that are being repeated, unhelpful dynamics over time. You know, trust your feelings. If you consistently feel unsafe, overwhelmed, or unseen, that's a signal to seek some sort of support. Document and reflect. Journaling or talking with a neutral listener, can help clarify those patterns as well. Seek professional help. A family therapist, a counselor can help map out the roles, boundaries, and communication strategies. Safety first. If there is any risk of physical or emotional harm, prioritize safety. So and contact local resources or hotlines. Now, questions you might ask yourself or maybe a professional. How do we usually handle conflicts? How do you handle your conflicts with in your home? Do you listen to each other? Are boundaries clear and respected by everyone? Do all family members feel valued, heard, and supported? Is there secrecy, blame, manipulation that undermines the trust? Or is anyone safety is at risk? Um, in the home. Yeah. Um, common signs across the family system, when it comes to communication, these are, some common signs that you might see, notice even in your own family, when it comes to communication. You have chronic conflict, hostility, you argue a lot, shouting, sarcasm, hostility, that that doesn't get things resolved. Poor listening, one or more members routinely interrupt, dismiss, or invalidates other feelings and needs, of the other family members. Blame versus accountability. Problems are always someone else's fault, but never their fault. No one takes responsibility or accountability for their wrongdoing. Passive aggressive dynamics, hidden hostility, expressed indirectly through forgetfulness, sarcasm, or maybe sullenness. Silence as a shield. They get quiet on you. Important topics are avoided. There's culture or of there's a culture of quiet tension. But toxic people do this to punish people. When they just shut down and go silent like that. Emotional climate is another one. Um, Emotional neglect or invalidation. Feelings, needs, or boundaries are dismissed or minimized. Chronic fear or anxiety. Um, Family members feel unsafe expressing themselves or asking for help. Inconsistent affection, warmth, and support are unreliable or conditional. Then you have shame and secrecy. Important issues are kept hidden. There's pressure there. There's pressure to keep family problems private. Boundaries and anatomy. Uh, Enmeshment or over control. Individual boundaries are blurred. Family members are overly involved in each other's lives, trying to control the life of another person. Lack of privacy, personal space, possessions, or information are frequently scrutinized or shared without consent. Um, you have, that family member that loves to tell everybody's business, but they, you know, um, role confusion. Children carry adult responsibilities, or parents rely on their children for emotional support. Sometimes I've seen them where parents, rely on the children for everything, especially if they are adult children. Yeah. Roles and power dynamics. Unhealthy hierarchy. One person dominates the decisions. Others feel unheard or powerless. Um, Favoritism or scapegoating. Some members are treated. Uh, uh, some members are treated. Better than while some others are blamed or punished or treated unfairly. It's like I've seen with my mother. She loved all of her children, but she had her favorites. I have this one sister that she counted on more than she did the rest of us, and she trusted more than she did the rest of her children. Then you have manipulation, um, guilt trips, gaslighting, coercive type tactics used to control behavior as well. You know, um, so let's get into the practical steps aligned with biblical wisdom. Well, first, we need to pray and seek God's wisdom, spend time in prayer, reflecting, asking for discernment, patience, and a God honoring plan. Consider asking, trusting spiritual mentors or a pastor for counsel as well. Number two, access, safety, and protect the vulnerable. Is there any risk of harm? Prioritize safety. You may need to seek external help or guidance. Biblical wisdom supports protecting the innocent. Set clear, biblically grounded boundaries. Scripture informed boundary framing. For example, I will not participate in this kind of behavior. I will continue to show respect and love to you, but I will not participate in this type of behavior. These are boundaries that you're putting in place. Communicate boundaries calmly and briefly. You can do it with love, not as you don't have to do it as a way to be mean. Example, boundary script. Like you could say, I love you and value our relationship. Uh, for us to continue healing, we need to avoid this type of behavior. When this type of behavior occurs, I will respond with, some sort of, I will respond with love and take a break. I'll walk away if needed. Number four, address issues with truth, telling, and grace. Call out the patterns when necessary, using I statements. Pair truth telling with grace. Acknowledge the person's uh, humanity and your concern for their well being. Number five, practice forgiveness carefully. Forgiveness is all about releasing bitterness, healing, not necessarily rewriting consequences or, excusing harm. Seek reconciliation when it's safe. Sustain, seek it when it's safe as well as sustainable. And both sides are willing to change. You know, everybody's willing to do the work. Seek supportive, faith aligned resources, family counseling with a faith informed counselor, church based pastors, care, some sort of support, through your church, if you belong to a church, small group accountability, or some sort of mentoring relationship. Number seven, encourage accountability without enabling. Encourage responsibility for actions, apologies, measurable changes. Avoid rewarding manipulative behavior with attention or compliance. Number eight, use biblical models for conflict resolution. And Matthew 18:15 through 17 offers steps for addressing grievances privately, then with witnesses, and then within community if necessary. And 1 Corinthians 5 provides guidance for dealing with persistent problematic behavior in community settings. Adapt to family context with wisdom and sensitivity. Yeah. So I think that when it comes to seeking external help, if these patterns persist and harm continues, consider counseling with a faith compatible therapist, maybe a faith based type therapist, or you can go to your counselor. If there's abuse or risk, contact local resources, local authorities, regardless of religious consideration, and involve trusted church leadership for prayerful support and accountability, while ensuring safety and boundaries remain intact. Um, Here is I'm gonna close this out, but before I do, this is a prayerful prompt that you might can use. Lord, grant me wisdom to set healthy boundaries without hard-heartedness. Help me to love well and protect the vulnerable. Jesus, be my peace in this storm. Show me what to say and when to listen. And strengthen our family to reflect your love, truth, and humility, even in painful moments. Amen. This is a prayer that you can memorize. Maybe you want to write it down, or just a prayer similar to that can help you in a God perspective on how to overcome a dysfunctional family dynamic. So that's all I have, you guys. I hope this will be a blessing to someone. Also, I'm going to be sending this over to my YouTube channel, so you can go over there. You can find me there as well. Mental health and wellness 101 with a faith-based perspective. So you guys have a blessed day, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye-bye.